My guest today is the co-host of RT's popular show, The Keiser Report. She's also behind the Orange Pill podcast and is considered one of the most influential voices in the cryptocurrency space, especially Bitcoin. Please welcome back to the show, my Valentine's date, Stacy Herbert. Stacy, thanks for joining us.
Nice to be your Valentine's date.
Absolutely, and happy anniversary. I know it's your anniversary with Max Keiser, so happy anniversary to you, lovebirds. A lot of ground to cover with you here today, Stacy. We got to talk about the news of the week here. Tesla taking a big chunk of Bitcoin. First and foremost, were you surprised?
Of course I was not surprised because I co-host the Orange Pill podcast with Max Keiser, and Max Keiser has seen all from the very beginning.
Visionary.
He saw this back in 2011 that the likes of Elon Musk would be hyper Bitcoinizing the world through their balance sheet. So, I kind of expected it, but it is certainly fun. Like the energy levels in our studio and our audience has been amazing. So it's been fun. I feel like, the whole, memosphere in the Bitcoin space used to be all about going to the moon, but now we're all heading to Mars.
Wow, heading to Mars. Well, Michael Saylor, who we've had on the show, I know you're good friends with, has kind of started this movement in the executive world order. So do you think we're going to see other executives have FOMO here, fear of missing out, and will follow suit? And who would be next?
Definitely, you'll see the corporations wanting to prevent, this melting ice cube on their balance sheet. I think you're going to see most of the big action coming in from the hedge funds and the asset managers because they are basically rated looking at each other, compared to each other. So they have to outperform their competitors. Otherwise, their clients go to their competitors. So Paul Tudor Jones was the first of the major hedge funds to enter the space. And we've seen dozens of hedge funds enter since then. We saw Michael Saylor speaking with NYDIG and other hedge funds and asset managers. And there was one of the asset managers who said that he has, I think his name is Ross Stevens, and he says he has $50 billion in client money wanting to enter Bitcoin this year.
So, Max was on the show earlier. He gave his forecast to us. I was very grateful for that. His Bitcoin prediction for this year, 220,000, probably happening by November. I wonder if you guys have since changed your forecast. Has it gone even higher now, given the news of Tesla?
It's still right on track. This was part of the hyper Bitcoinization model. I also feel like, for me, I kind of look at sectors. So right now, if Bitcoin is, somewhere between 800 and 900 billion in market cap, silver is 1.5 trillion. I think it takes out silver first. It's going to overtake silver and market cap. Then it heads for gold. Then it heads for treasuries. These are the markets. It'll take out these markets as hyper Bitcoinization takes us to the moon.
I asked Max this question, and I want to ask you now, Stacy. When people talk about Bitcoin, they talk about it as it's a super bubble. I had one guest on saying it's going to correct 95%. And of course, you can make money in a bubble, but you have to get out at the right time. What's your answer to those people?
I have heard that now for 10 years. So bear that in mind, because I've seen it, I've heard it called a bubble. You could go back to 2011 and look at comments on our YouTubes at that time, shrieking about this bubble and why are we pushing this bubble? It's $13 and it was only $1 for a Bitcoin a few months ago and blah, blah, blah. So I think Bitcoin is a bet on the future of humanity. It's a bet on human ingenuity, as Paul Tudor Jones said, and I think he said it right. And how do you price that, right? How did you price TCP/IP, right? Like, was that a bubble? Yeah, sure. There were some companies built on top of TCP/IP that were bubbles during .com 1.0, but this is just a complete paradigm shift. We've had the same. This is the first new layer one money in 5,000 years. Like, how do you say something after 10 years is only bubble? Like, we've got 5,000 years ahead of us.
I think when I was talking to Michael Saylor, I said it's a revolution, and he said no, I don't want to call it a revolution. He sees it as an evolution. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's an evolution of layer one money. We've had gold, we've had treasuries, and now we have Bitcoin. So this and treasuries were just an innovation on top of gold, on what gold merchants had already figured out. They invented the notion of essentially the treasury market. Bitcoin is a new paradigm, and it's an evolution of layer one money. And that is, you could call it a revolution. I think it is revolutionary in a way, in that, it was invented by humans for humans. And I think that's revolutionary in a way, because it's just like that moment of pre-French Revolution, where the ideas and the Enlightenment over a few decades, that it was revolutionary to say, wait, we could separate the church and state. The same thing has happened now. We could separate the church, the state and money. It's just going back to 5,000 years ago that the state and money were separated, right? Like, even think of Florence during the Renaissance. It was Medici. Medici was not the power. He wasn't the Vatican, but we had decentralized gold merchants. They were the source of funds.
Stacy, there's also a lot of energy around Ethereum. I'm guessing you prefer Bitcoin over Ethereum. Why is Bitcoin better than Ethereum for you?
Bitcoin is layer one money. That is the first layer one money since gold. That's 5,000 years that we have not seen a new layer one money. Bitcoin fixes a lot of the inherent problems of gold in being layer one money, a decentralized money for all people. Ethereum is just a software product built as if, pitching itself as some sort of money, a get-rich-quick scheme upon which many scams are built. Bitcoin focused, the Ethereum, by the way, it was founded by Vitalik Buterin because he couldn't wait for Bitcoin to introduce layer two. He was not willing to accept a solid, strong layer one money. That was fundamentally the most important thing for Bitcoin. That's why Bitcoin is where it is today, and that's why we have another 5,000 years ahead of us.
You have said you are very happy that you're riding on the fastest horse in the game. Are you, when as an investor, are you solely in Bitcoin, Stacy?
Bitcoin is the fastest horse in the race. Gold is heading for the glue factory. I think I still have gold and silver purely for entertainment value. Our audience likes to laugh at us as I say, okay, boomer, and have fun saying poor. And it's just for entertainment value, because Max and I are entertainers after all, with the Orange Pill podcast and Keiser report. So we are, entertainers. But with Bitcoin, okay, I own MicroStrategy, for example, and that's outperformed my Bitcoin over the past 6 months for sure. But once you own Bitcoin, that meme, I am the central bank. Like, why would you want to do anything else after that? Once you see what it is to be the central bank.
Yeah. When you say gold is headed to the glue factory, then you think, is it an end game for gold here?
Well, obviously gold will still be around, but it'll still be held by the central banks, right? So I believe what Aleister MacLeod believes, which is that the dollar is about to collapse. The dollar is going away. And we see that from the likes of the IMF already signaling a new Bretton Woods. And with that, they will try to engineer something that will involve gold in some way. But if you look at GameStop, if you look at the hashtag silver squeeze, what you see is they control that narrative. That perception management that Jerome Powell of the central bank does, or Christine Lagarde of the ECB, like, they're all about perception management, and they have to, they have to manage perception about their ability to control the fiat system around us. So, there's no Paul Volcker around to raise interest rates to 20% again in order to maintain faith in the dollar. So what will they have to do? It will have to be some sort of gold solution, because they don't own any Bitcoin. They can't control Bitcoin. They'll never be able to control Bitcoin. So they'll have to go with the second best, which is gold. And whether or not they come knocking at your door or pass executive orders saying that actually they own your gold and they'll give you some sort of price for it, just like Roosevelt did. So maybe they'll say, okay, we'll give you $3,000, but they'll revalue it to $15,000. I don't know, but I don't like to have to, hope and pray that these guys that I don't have any control over, give me a fair price for my gold.
I got you. I hear you. Do you not think central banks would start buying Bitcoin or not reveal it?
Obviously there was this big story out of Russia today. There's some huge mining operation going on, and they've just had 20,000 new mining, machines, ASICs delivered. So we don't know if that's Russia. We know that Iran is mining Bitcoin. We know that Venezuela is. I think perhaps China is. It makes sense because of the what Bitcoin does. Like, one of the attributes is that it's a settlement layer, and it's not, you can't censor it. You can't censor the communication between nodes and addresses. So it makes sense that those states, those nations who are subject to sanctions on the current global financial grid, the settlements layer, which is the US dollar, that they're going to start mining Bitcoin because they need it out of necessity. Mother necessity often drives a lot of innovation, but also facts on the ground.
You mentioned silver squeeze. You and Max were really pioneers of this back in 2010 when you were calling for the takedown JP Morgan by silver. It's now manifested. Tell me where you were, what you were thinking when it was happening. Now, it came and went, but we'll get to there later. But first, your thoughts on the silver squeeze, Stacy.
Definitely our campaign was the first. It was Crash JP Morgan Buy Silver. If you just Google it, you'll find all these articles from late 2010. Silver at that time went from $15 to $50. So the campaign against JP Morgan succeeded. And what we had identified is when they were gifted Bear Stearns, they were gifted vulnerability, which is they had a massive short position on silver. So uniquely, just one bank, so one target, just like with the GameStop campaign was against Melvin and Citadel, like those were just a limited target rather than a broad target like just the silver market at the moment. So we were targeting JP Morgan, that they were vulnerable. We knew they could be squeezed. They closed their silver shorts position. It was something like, their position was something like 3 times annual silver production. So it was, they were vulnerable. They closed those positions. It drove the price up to 50. Now they're like large holders of physical silver. I don't think they'll do that again. Silver, obviously, though, like as soon as GameStop, that situation, like the people started galvanizing around it, and there were like 10 million and then 12 million and 15 million people signed up to Wall Street Bets, and people were buying GameStop. Well, you saw what the regulators did. The regulators came in, the prime brokers came in, they all shut down that game, that war, that battle. And then they went to the silver market, and even faster, the regulators came in, raised margin requirements, like they shut that down super fast, despite the huge volume in silver, which is way more physical silver sold than during the Crash JP Morgan Buy Silver campaign.
So there's just too much paper silver out there, Stacy. Is that the issue?
Yeah, look at the regulators will do the same thing they did to the Hunt brothers. They could raise margin requirements to destroy everybody, but the actual, companies that need it, like, the solar panel companies and stuff like that, maybe they'll have exemptions and stuff, but they could target any campaign like that again. And that's why I say, Bitcoin is a bet on the future of humanity. Gold is a bet against it. Bitcoin is relentless optimism. Gold and silver are nonstop disappointment and despair. So, partly because the central banks are the problem here, but the central banks own most of the gold. They don't own silver, obviously, but they own all that gold, and they can control the silver price through their markets that they own and operate. They don't own and operate the Bitcoin markets. They don't control that market at all.
But, Stacy, I know I introduced you as one of the most influential voices in Bitcoin, but when I think Stacy Herbert, I also think silver, and I get that iconic image of you in your silver garb. So I know you like silver.
Well, silver reminds me of our achievement. I never want to forget what I achieved. We achieved victory over the largest bank in the world, the most powerful bank in the world, JP Morgan. They fell to their knees. They closed their short positions. They were quoted on the front page of the Financial Times that, they're not afraid of us. So that was them saying they're afraid of us. We forced them to act differently than they were. And that led to them just this past year being charged, they did a deal with the Department of Justice, but they were being charged with actual racketeering for the manipulation of the silver price that we identified all those years ago. So I count that as a victory, and it's like having an Oscar on your shelf. Like, this is our victory, and I don't want to forget that. And as I said, it's also entertainment value. Many of our guests come on our show and mock us for holding silver, and it breaks the ice.
So I guess my question though is, so does silver not get its time in the sun, and talk of triple digit silver, does that ever pan out?
I feel like, yes, silver will hit triple digits, partly because everything will. I think I do believe we are in a commodity super cycle about to start, and that is mostly due to the disintegration of this U.S. dollar system. It's 50 years old. It's past its date. It's very, very old for a fiat currency, and it turns 50 if it lives to August of this year. So I think you're going to see, stock markets are melting up. You see house prices melting up. You see commodities melting up. Bitcoin will be the fastest horse in that race. Silver will rocket up, probably more than gold, perhaps because not only do central banks not own silver, but as you see with the mindset of everybody locked down at home, getting free money all over the place, they don't, they have unit bias. So they like the smaller, if gold is $1,900 an ounce, I'd rather buy the one that's $27 an ounce, right? Because they think it's just, it's easier to flip to do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5x. And so I think silver will probably benefit from the mindset of these people who are about to get another $1,400 check. There's talk of even more money coming within a few months. So a lot of people are it's like fantasy land, right? Because nobody's working, nothing's being produced, but we have Americans have more money than they ever have ever. Like the hugest savings rate because they're being sent so much money. So it just feels like a fantasy land. You're in a Vegas casino. Why not speculate on all these things? Like whatever you could possibly pump the most. If Tesla's already $1,000, then well, let's go for silver. I think
making it rain. Stacy, I've said it before. I love following you on social media. Especially when something gets under your skin. So I want to wrap here and ask you 3 things that are really bugging you these days.
I have to say, the thing about Bitcoin, when you become a Bitcoiner, nothing really bugs you. Like you're in a space that your individual sovereignty, and yet you're not like an individual sovereign with a bar of gold hiding out in a tax haven in the Caribbean, right? You're like part of this community that is building, because cypherpunks write code, cypherpunks build. That's Bitcoin. We build, we make, we're going to Mars. We're not begging the central banks for any help. We're not begging them to save us or change or please don't take our stuff. We're just doing. And so it's hard with that mindset, but when I do look on Twitter and I look at politics Twitter, the thing that bugs me the most, I guess, is the fiat dark ages. I feel like a lot of people who I know and love, they're stuck in those fiat dark ages where like this viciousness and this war and this authoritarianism, this civil war sort of mentality of like, let's destroy 70 million Americans. Let's send them to re-education camp. Like they want them eradicated. And that's like terrifying because we've seen that in history where you want other people just eradicated, removed from earth, like for their opinions, their ideology or whatever. So I just think that's like kind of scary for me. And I feel so much, it makes me feel even better about Bitcoin, how positive and relentlessly optimistic it is versus just the despair and hatred and anger in that world of politics. Like you don't like, that's what the fiat dark ages has led to. That's what central banks have caused. And why be there when you could just exit? You can exit that system and come to Bitcoin. Join the Orange Pill Podcast Telegram group.
Life is good in the Citadel, right?
Yes. It's much better.
Well,
And why, like, everybody has a choice right now. And that's amazing. That's an amazing moment, because you have the choice to be optimistic, to build things, to engage with a community that's all positive. You don't need to hate your neighbors. You don't need to hate your family. You don't need to hate like the system around you, because we've changed the system. We have an alternative now, and that's a fortunate moment in history. This is like, you have the opportunity to live in Florence in like the 1300s, and you're like, no, I'm going to go live in the south of France or something. You're like, no, like, this is the moment. This is the place you want to be, because you will be remembered for the next 3,000 years.
Wow. I love your passion, Stacy. Perfect for Valentine's Day. Yay. I thank you for joining me today, for wearing red, and happy anniversary again to you and Max.
And Bitcoin is love.
I know Max likes reminding me of that every day. So one day you guys both got to come on. Stacy, you're the coolest person I know. Come back anytime to stansberryinvestor.com.
Thanks for having me, Danielle.
And thank you for watching. We'll have much more for you. So stay tuned, stansberryinvestor.com, and keep following us on all our social media channels. Thank you for watching. I'm Daniela Cambone.